Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Freddy and today I want to talk about this wonderful gem of a book. It's called Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit and it's written by Jeanette Winterson. So this book was published in 1985 and I believe it's very well known, and this is the first time I read something by Jeanette Winterson. And when I got this book, you know, I, I was particularly interested with how it relates a person's sexuality, a character's sexuality, with her religious background, religious family. And reading this book, I certainly wasn't disappointed. I thought that the writing was really interesting. I particularly like the humor that is used in the book, the way that the narrator narrates the story in this such a matter-of-fact manner, and it feels so natural. It feels like I'm talking with the narrator. And I believe this book is also kind of semi-autobiographical, and that would probably explains why this book actually feels kind of intimate. It feels like the story is personal. You could totally get that vibe from this book, and I thought that that was amazing. It felt like it didn't feel really difficult to get into this book because it just sucked you in. The story just made you feel invited into it. There was no some sort of barriers when it comes to the language. Um, it is super accessible, and overall, it was just an amazing book. I actually read this book during lunchtime at work, and usually for the books that I chose to read during that time, I wouldn't really choose books that are either pessimistic or difficult to read. So I definitely won't read Virginia Woolf during lunchtime. And I realized that Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit was a really good choice, a really good book that I read for lunchtime, because it was it wasn't 100% uplifting, but the way it was written, it was definitely entertaining. And so in a way my mood was lifted during lunchtime and during afternoon uh, at work. So Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit is about a girl. Her name is Jeanette, and she grew up in a particularly religious family. Her mother especially is a very religious person, and both of them regularly interacted with the church community, and both of them were some sort of a constant in the church environment. So the church was pretty much a big part of Jeanette's life. So in a way, it kind of became part of her childhood, part of her personality, and it was something that she accepted, at least at first, because there was nothing to challenge her at the time. She was pretty much kind of chilling with this community of hers. There was no struggle, there was no conflict that caused her to question things. So everything was great, everything was nice. Then one day she saw this one girl about her age, and she thought that that girl was cute, and she started to have this feeling towards the girl, and it seemed that the girl also returned her feelings, but they weren't really able to openly show their feelings, because showing such feelings is considered as unnatural passions within the church community. So they only did things like in a very hushed way. But it was starting from that moment that Jeanette started to kind of question her beliefs a little bit. The way that she has this feeling towards another girl, but at the same time it's considered as something that was totally bad by the church, and she just couldn't understand it, because she didn't have like much feeling towards male, but instead she has this strong feelings towards females, and she just couldn't really figure out how to connect these feelings of hers with how she was brought up, the teachings that she was exposed to, uh, as far as religions and beliefs went in this book. But of course, this is a young character we're talking about. She was still in a very young age, just started to explore her sexuality, her attraction to other people. And so she kind of made some misstep along the way. She was kind of innocent about this whole feelings things. And so she ended up confiding with her mother about her feelings towards this girl. And even though at first she thought that it was okay, confiding with her mother was an okay thing to do. It wouldn't cause any ruckus. But as it turned out, it was a bad decision that pretty much kind of made her life more chaotic. It kind of became the start of the conflicts that she's starting to experience, and it was from that point that her relationship with the church and her family just started to perhaps shatter a little bit. And throughout this novel, we see how Jeanette keeps trying to make sense of this whole thing, this whole bigger picture, whether her feelings are right, whether her beliefs are right. She's just trying to really understand what is she supposed to do, with all of these conflicting things happening to her. And it is fun. There's a lot of conflict here, especially internal conflicts, and we really get to see how this character grows from that. It was a beautiful story as a whole, and it was particularly inspiring also, and I just loved it. I loved it very much. So when I first started this book, I actually had the expectation that this book is going to deal a lot with the romance bit. But as it turned out, the romance wasn't exactly a big part of this book. And I wasn't exactly disappointed by that, because I was actually so engaged with the character's journey in trying to discover stuff within herself, that I was so deeply immersed in that experience. And I thought that even without this so-called romance thing going on, it was still a really wonderful book. Ultimately, this book is about a person's journey with the self, and it's also a book that explores the relationship, this evolving relationship between Jeanette and her mother. And we see that this relationship kind of starts to turn in this really weird, crooked way. And it's not a very straight evolution. There were ups and downs, but in general you could see that there was a downward trend with that. But the novel still shows people in this book as humans instead of caricatures. I think it's really easy for people to kind of just come up with a story, especially with a story that has that presents values that are totally conflicting with each other. And depending on the author's point of view, that they will have the characters to be one side, the protagonist would be good and the antagonist would be bad. And while protagonists are usually good and antagonists are usually bad, I think it's really great if we could see stories that present both of these sides of people with nuance and layers. And I thought that Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit was one of the books that does that. While reading this book, I definitely could sympathize, I could empathize with Jeanette, but at the same time, I felt like there was a bit of an issue going on with Jeanette's mother. I can't really say that I dislike the mother completely, because even though her actions were kind of morally questionable, I think at the same time a little bit hypocritical. At the same time, it kind of makes me feel like maybe the mother has issues of her own, because the way that she acts just felt so suspiciously wrong. And I can't help but to think that perhaps the mother was actually also experiencing certain things so so much that she actually used her religion as a way of coping, and in the process she kind of ruined her relationship with the daughter. I don't know. It wasn't really explored in this book, but the way it was written, the writer was not trying to make the mother look extremely evil. And I think that's good, because at least it makes the antagonist, the mother, to be to be someone who is kind of still human. So as a whole, I seriously recommend everybody to read Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit. It's a really awesome novel, and it's also a bit short, so I think everyone can enjoy it like within 1 week or so. And if you like seeing character changes, I think that Jeanette in this book experiences a really really strong character change from the start to the end, and it's nice. It's really satisfying. Overall, it's a 5-star read. So yeah, read this. It's wonderful. I love it so much. So that's it for today, and I'll see you again in another video. So until then, take care and have a nice day, and bye bye.